Okay, good morning everyone. Are there any questions before I start? So, if you go to your Moodle site, I have posted how to access the CAD lab. I know that many of you from this class are taking CAD lab and you know how to access and use those machines. That's the standard instructions on what the names of the machines are, how to remote login. There is also a brief tutorial on Verilog. So, today I won't spend time on that, but maybe next class we'll spend a little time. Start reviewing that. Start reviewing what Verilog code is like and the tutorial on Verilog. So, we'll spend a little time on that. So, last class, last class we talked about pipelining and we began talking about parallel processing, and we talked about how to take the equations of a digital filter, and if we want 10 parallel, well, I can substitute n is equal to 10k, 10k plus 1 through 10k plus 9, and that will give me a 10 parallel filter. And the non-trivial thing, I guess the non-trivial meaning that you may not have thought of before, when you took the DSP class before you, the standard thought is, well, a delay element is simply z to power minus 1. But when we talk about multi-rate, I mentioned the word multi-rate, which I have been trying to avoid, but when you talk about parallel filters here, the reason I say multi-rate is because the sample rate, when you think about the signal that is being sampled, that's being sampled at a different rate than the clock period or the processing rate of the parallel filter. So, we mentioned last time that if I have a 3 parallel filter that let us say operates with a clock period of 10 nanoseconds, so that's the clock period, that's the hardware critical path is 10 nanoseconds. What that also says that in 10 nanoseconds I can compute 3 outputs. That means I can achieve a sampling period of 10 by 3 nanoseconds, and that's called the sampling period. So, the sampling period when we are sampling the external signal, that rate is slightly different, well, in this case 3 times different than the 3 parallel filter clock rate, and that's why I say this is a multi-rate system. Okay, so there are 2 rates, one is the sampling rate and the other is the clock rate. Okay, so let me continue with talking about, we also talked about computation and communication bounds. Okay, that's kind of a review of what we talked about last time. So, today I want to spend a little more time on things related to critical path reduction. So, reducing critical path. So, the standard digital filter, this so-called standard digital filter or the FIR, we have been talking about FIR digital filter. So, the standard digital filter has a configuration like this. So, if you think about this is the input, this is the output. So, yn, let us call these coefficients a, b, c, d. So, yn is a xn plus b xn minus 1 plus c xn minus 2 plus d xn minus 3. Now, there is so initially we began talking about the critical path here, which was 1 multiply plus n minus 1. So, the critical path is Tm plus n minus 1 times Ta, where n is the number of taps. So, if it is a 100 tap digital filter, so the critical path will be 1 multiply plus 99 adds. And we then saw that we can reduce the clock period by a number of ways. One is of course by vertical cut sets. So, if we place pipelining cut sets at these locations, then we can reduce the clock period. And we talked about a number of other ways as well. So one of the points that I want to talk about is the so-called the transpose form. So this is called the direct form. And the transpose form. What do you think is the transpose form of the digital filter, FIR digital filter? Anybody has come across in your DSP class?
Input and output are reversed.
Well, okay, well that's okay. That's good. So let's talk about that. So the idea of transpose form means we reverse the as a direction. So if I think about this as a signal flow graph, so I have xn. So let me draw a signal flow graph. This is input x. A, B, C, D. Okay, so that's the original signal flow graph. The idea of transposition means you simply reverse the edges, directions of the edges. So if I reverse these edges, so indeed this becomes our input x and that becomes our output y. And if you look at what we have now, I have x going through, well, I'm going to convert this so-called transpose form back to a block diagram. So I have multiplication by d going through a delay element, and this is going through a multiplication by c, and add to that and a delay element, then multiply by b, add to that and a delay element, and finally multiply by a and add to that, and that's the output y. Okay, so if you look at what exactly is going on, so this is the input x. So what are the contributions here? So a times x goes directly to output. B times x goes to the output passing through one delay. So that's same as b times xn minus 1. X multiplied by c goes through 2 delays. That's how we get cxn minus 2. And d times xn goes through 1, 2, 3 delays, and that's how we get d times xn minus 3. So transposing the digital filter leads to a different form where indeed the difference equation is the same. So it's computing the exact same transfer function. And if you look at very carefully, the critical path now is 1 multiply and 1 add, independent of the number of filter taps n. So this critical path at any given stage, the critical path is 1 multiply 1 add, and that is not dependent on the number of taps of the filter. It can be 100 taps, 1000 taps, or whatever. Okay, so and we can redraw that. We can redraw the now I can redraw that transpose form by having the x on the left hand side, the output y on the right hand side. So in fact, if I redraw that in a more familiar form, okay, so that's the exact same equivalent circuit redrawn so that the input is on the left side, output is on the right side, the delay elements are on the bottom and the signal X is in the top. Okay, so that's kind of the so-called standard transpose form digital filter. Okay, so a couple of things that you can notice when we transpose the structure. This kind of a node, so if you look at this kind of a node in the signal flow graph is called a summing node. So the role of summing node and the role of so that equivalent node which is here is called a fan out node. So when we transpose a filter structure, a summing node becomes a fan out node, and a fan out node, a so called fan out node, if I take this example here, whatever signal was coming was fanned out to two different paths, and if you look at that same node here, that becomes a summing node. So the role of summing node and add node switch. So summing node becomes a fan out node, and a fan out node becomes a summing node by the transposition operation. So that's essentially what transposition does. It reverses the directions of the edges and reverses the input and output locations in the process. Summing node becomes a fan out node becomes a summing node. Okay. So the transpose operation reduces the critical. The good thing about this is the transpose operation reduces the critical path to a multiply add independent of the order of the filter, and so that's kind of one advantage compared to the direct form. So let's think about briefly what might be some of the good things about the direct form and the good things about the transpose form. So if you look at so typically when you think about a multiplication in the hardware, so and I mentioned that before, multiplication in hardware is analogous to convolution operation in algorithmic level. So if we have a multiplication operation that multiplies a number, and W1 bit number by a W2 bit number, the result is W1 plus W2 minus 1. And if I add, so if I am computing A, B plus C, D, and let's say that let's just say that each of these is W bits. So A, B, C, D are all W bits. So A, B will become W plus 1 bits, C, D will become W plus 1 bits, and A, B plus C, D. By the way, when you add two things, so the dynamic range doubles, so you need one more bit, and it so happens that in this case, well, in this case we don't really need more than W plus 1 bits, and if you see the dynamic range, if each of these is between minus 1 and 1, A times B will be well, let's see. So if these are no, I made a mistake. So this is 2W minus 1 bits. This is 2W minus 1 bits, and then the resulting sum will be 2W bits. Okay. So if each of these is 10 bits, then this will be a 19 bit result, and you add them, you get a 20 bit result. Okay. So if you think about, let's say that this is our 10 bit data, and let's say that this coefficient is 10 bits, then the multiplication result is 19 bits, and we have all these 19 bit results, and if we add these 19 bit results, 4 of the 19 bit results, this will eventually be 21 bits. Okay. So if I add 4 things, then the log 4 is 2, so eventually it will increase to 21 bits by 2 more bits. So what I am trying to say is that this delay element, the so called delay that looks to be same as that delay, in fact this delay element will consist of 10 flip flops in the direct form whereas this will correspond, this particular delay will correspond to 19 flip-flops. So they look same. When you look at these block diagrams, they look same, but that might be, that's not necessarily to say that these are consuming same area or same kind of properties in the hardware implementations. So one thing is these delays on the top wire and the bottom wire really are not same with respect to their width. Okay, so so that's kind of one drawback of this. What might be another drawback? So the main advantage of the transpose form we talked about is the reduction in critical path to 1 multiply add without depending on the number of taps. What might be another drawback? So those of you who have synthesized circuits and designed circuits, ultimately, and I talked briefly about the communication bound, and in some sense this so-called fan out, if you think about this signal X is input to all these multiplier inputs. So the multiplication itself, if it is a 10 by 10 bit multiplication, it will have a lot of gates. So the capacitive load, the effective capacitive load on this input Xn will be substantially higher than the direct form, because the direct form we are holding that and with a flip flop, and the what is the input to this multiplier is the output from the flip flop. So think about the fan out as similar to the communication bound. It's not really computing something, but this signal will be overloaded a lot. That means the fan out can become the bottleneck. It's not going to be the speed of the multipliers or the adders. The fan out of this can indeed become a bottleneck. So okay, so those are two drawbacks of the transpose form. One is the fan out of the input signal. So the input signal X is fed into, if there are 100 multipliers, then you have to feed them into 100 multipliers. Well, that's going to be a huge capacitive load. And the second drawback is the number of flip flops to store the bottom signals, path signals. So that path is, so in number of flip flops, increased number of flip flops, okay, increase in the number of flip flops. So that's kind of so in some sense then it should be possible to have data paths which are bidirectional. So in some sense we can have delays. So how can we, the so-called hybrid form, by the way, before I get into hybrid form, let me just say that just like we saw in the direct form, we can also internally pipeline these multipliers as we talked about last time, and we can do the same thing here as well. So now we know that the critical path is 1 multiply add, and we can internally pipeline these multipliers as well. So okay, so So, unlike direct form and transpose form, this particular flow graph has some delays on the top path and some delays on the bottom path. So, if I write down the time domain difference equation, yn is going to be a times xn. So, that is a times xn without any delays plus b times xn minus 1. So, b times xn with 1 delay, b times xn minus 1. What about c? Well, c times xn delayed by 1 and goes to the output with another delay. So, that c times xn minus 2 plus d. Now, if we look at this d, it has gone through 2 delays on the path on the top, 1 more delay on the bottom. So, d times xn minus 3 plus e times. So, e goes through 2 delays on the top, 2 delays on the bottom, 1, 2. So, that is e times xn minus 4 plus f times, now 3 delays on the top and 2 delays on the bottom. So, f times xn minus 5. So, once again, so this is another equivalent form which is called the hybrid form. And as you can see here, the input is no longer fed to many multipliers. So, clearly we have certain separation here, and these delays are going to make sure that the input is not loaded with a huge capacitance because of fan out. So, the fan out problem is solved, and so the fan out problem is solved. The critical path, if you look at the critical path in this particular hybrid form, is 1 multiply 2 adds as opposed to 1, still independent of the filter order. So, instead of 1 multiply 1 add, the critical path is 1 multiply 2 adds. Okay, so that will be the critical path independent of the filter order. Okay, any question about? So, we have really talked about 3 types of filter structures: direct form, transpose form, and hybrid form. Any questions about this? Yeah.
Any circuit be expressed like this? Like
Any circuit will be implemented like this? Yes, yes, yes. So, all of the gigabit Ethernet chips that you see on your computer, anytime you have your gigabit transceiver on every PC, it does not matter whether you bought it from the chip is by Broadcom or anybody. This is indeed what they use. All the products implementing gigabit Ethernet chips do use this particular structure, not the direct form or the transpose form. So, this is indeed what is used in very high speed digital filters that are part of echo cancellers or crosstalk cancellers. So, if you look at a gigabit Ethernet, there will be 1200 taps, 1200 multiplication operations, and so you don't want to be you don't want the fan out bottleneck, and you don't want the direct form, because the direct form the critical path keeps going. So, indeed the hybrid form is the solution to overcoming the long critical path and the fan out bottleneck. So, yes, this is what the companies use. Any other questions? It is very hard to appreciate the usefulness of all the tools that we are teaching in the class unless you go out to industry and see those being used in the real practice. Well, it's very hard. I mean, you are sitting here in this building, it's hard to know where the companies are using these ideas. Okay, so okay, with that, let me talk about one more idea before I get into reduction of power consumption by pipelining or parallel processing. So, there is so I want to spend some time. So, I talked about how the whole notion of pipelining is really same as pipeline interleaving. So, in the bike example that I gave, we were interleaving 10 partial operations at same time unit. So that's like interleaving assembly of 10 bikes in that pipeline. So pipeline interleaving itself is a slightly different concept. It's not exactly same as pipelining, and so the essence of interleaving is the idea of using the same data path to interleave multiple computations. Okay, so let's say that let's take our 3-tap filter as a simple example. Well, I have 3 delays, it becomes now 4-tap, which is fine. So if I have this data path, we can compute yn is equal to axn plus bxn minus 1 plus cxn minus 2 plus dxn minus 3. So if you think about a lot of communication systems, and those of you who have at least taken some kind of a class on communication systems and looked at modulations like QAM, quadrature amplitude modulation, and the symbol is encoded using an in phase component and a quadrature phase component. We don't need to get into those. Think about, there are many applications where we may need to have many filtering operations. Well, so we can say in a communication system we have I and Q, this so-called in phase and quadrature phase, and this may go through certain filter, let us say H, this may go through another filter H prime or whatever. There are many applications where we need to filter many time series. So another example might be, let us say that I have a signal xn that is filtered by certain filter H, and I have another signal x prime n that is filtered by another filter H prime. So we are interested in computing these two filters H and H prime in the same data path. That's what is pipeline interleaving. I want to interleave. So if you think about what exactly is going on here, well, we take the sample number 0, sample number 1, sample number 2, sample number 3, and this computes y0, y1, y2, y3, etc. So what do you think? What do you think we can do if my objective is to perform these two filtering operations using this same data path? Any volunteers? So we want to use the same data path. Of course, if you think about this data path here as a data path of a programmable processor, then well, then that's a different story. But in the data path here, what do you think we can do to filter two independent time series? Independence, I mean, that's kind of, the word independence is important because one computation does not depend on another computation, and that's kind of, so anytime we talk about independence, that's same as concurrency. That means these two operations are concurrent, and that's why these can be pipelined or can be processed in parallel. And I talked about pipelining and parallel processing are dual approaches, meaning anything that can be pipelined can be processed in parallel and vice versa. Okay, so so what do we need to do? So the so-called interleaving transformation, which is similar to pipelining but slightly different, uh, so basically it consists of two steps. So one, replace each delay by m delays, where m is the level of interleaving. And then interleave the corresponding samples at the input. So these are the two steps. So what that means is, if I want to take this structure and I want to have two different time series be filtered by two different filters in the same data path in an interleaved manner, I can easily do that. All I need to do is to replace each delay. In case of interleaving two time series, m is 2, so replace each delay by 2 delays. Okay, so so the inputs that so what I have done, I simply start with the original data path xn with 3 delays, and each delay here is replaced by 2 delays, and that delay is replaced by 2 delays, that's replaced by 2 delays, and we are now going to input x0, sample number 0 of time series x, followed by sample number 0 of time series x prime, x1 followed by x prime, x2 followed by x2 prime, and so on. So we are now, as you can see here, this x0, x1, x2, these are belonging to time series x, x2 prime, x1 prime, x0 prime belong to the time series x prime. So we interleave different corresponding samples in this data path. So that's all we have done. And what I want to convince you is, in fact, this output coming here is the same exact equation which it should be computing. So, so in other words, we should be computing yn is axn plus bxn minus 1, etc., and y prime n is a times x prime n plus b times x prime n minus 1 plus c times x prime n minus 2 plus d times x prime n minus 3. Well, let's just take a look and see what exactly is going on here. So, so let's say that at some clock cycle 20, let's say some clock cycle 20. Okay. So let's call this node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4, and output 5. Okay. So so in clock cycle 20, what would be the input here? That would be x 20. Okay. So the input node, which is node number 1, will be x. So this is clock cycle. So let's say this is clock, and clock 21 will be x 20 prime. Clock 22 will be actually I made a mistake. This should be x 10 because x 1 is input in clock cycle 2, and this is x10 prime, and clock cycle 22 will be x11, 23 will be x11 prime, 24 will be x12, 25 will be x12 prime, and so on. Okay. So, why do I have, okay, this is 1 here, not that node. So, this is the, and 2 in node 2 here, node 2. So, what is, so if this is x10, what do you think at that clock cycle 20, what do you think will be here? So, if this signal here is x10, what would be here?
X9.
One of you, huh? X9 prime, yes. X9 prime would be here, and here X9. So, node 2 would be X9, and node 3 will be X8, and 4 will be X7. So, what about clock cycle 21? This is X10 prime, and this will be X9 prime. So, X9 prime, which was here, will now come here. Okay, so, and X8 prime, X7 prime, and at node 5. So, if you look at what we are computing at node 5, will be A times X10 plus B times X9 plus C times X8 plus D times X7, that would be Y10, and this would be Y10 prime, Y prime 10, sorry, Y prime 10, and at clock cycle 22, Y11, 23, Y prime 11, etc. So, now you can see that it is indeed these signals are lining up correctly, so that we are not computing garbage. Yes?
Why are we giving prime signals here?
We do. No, this is what the inputs are interleaved. So, sample number 0 of signal x, sample number 0 of x prime.
So we are giving two different samples.
We are interleaving two time series. So, if this is one time series x, this is one time series, we are interleaving them and feeding them like that. Yeah.
H and H prime,
Yes.
the transfer functions aren't different there.
Well, okay. So, now that you understand, at least in this simple example, that these coefficients A, B, C, D, I just assumed them to be same. So, the two time series are filtered by same transfer function, but that need not be so, that need not be so. So, what I can do, so now in fact, so now that you asked, I was going to get to that, but I am glad you asked that, because so now if you look at say clock cycle 20, I am multiplying these results of node 1, 2, 3, 4 by A, B, C, D. So, we are computing A times that, B times that, C times that, D times that. Now, what I can do in the next clock cycle, I can compute by A prime times X10 prime, B prime times that, C prime times that, D prime times that. So, in other words, I can have a multiplexer here that takes A and A prime such that this is feeding into the multiplication input such that A is fed in the even clock cycles and A prime is fed in the odd clock cycles. Same here, B and B prime. So, we have two sets of filter coefficients such that B is fed in clock cycle 20, 22, 24, and B prime is fed in 21, 23, 25, and so on. So, we just need another multiplexer. So, this switch, anytime I show a switch, that same as a multiplexer, and as soon as you start writing your Verilog code, you will quickly see how to write these switches in your Verilog code. So, okay. So, now do you see how two sets of filter coefficients can be interleaved as well in the data path? Okay, good. So, so I think most of the, except the Verilog part, I think let's just take a quick look at the homework. I think the homework 2, I think most of you should really be able to do homework 2 by the up to what I have taught so far. So problem 1 and 2 are simple things that I talked about before. Problem 3 is I have just changed the delays. You have to draw the 3 parallel filter. Problem 4 shows transpose form and then draw the 3 parallel structures. The main thing that I am trying to ask you is to draw the 3 parallel transpose form such that the data, this is by the way, the transpose form is also called data broadcast form. So the data is broadcast to all the multipliers as opposed to delayed. So, so its transpose form is also known as a data broadcast. So the inputs cannot be delayed. So even in the parallel filter, you have 3 parallel things and you still can't. So think about that a little bit. I didn't teach that. So this is a hybrid form of the filter, which I briefly talked about. Hybrid form where the signal is going forward on the top wire, going backward in the bottom wire with delays on both top and bottom lines. Find the transfer functions and find the parallel filters. Again, it may be a little thought provoking, but not that bad. Let's see here. Okay, there are a couple of Verilog of the direct form and the transpose form, but I kind of am beginning to wonder. I think the TA, yeah.
Just a question on
Yeah.
Verilog.
Yeah.
When it says verify their functionality, do you just feed in inputs and then look at the output and see?
Yes, yes. So you can create a test. We'll talk a little more. Create a test bench and then get the output from MATLAB and check with the Verilog output, and indeed they should be same. Okay, so well, I mean that's kind of when you work in any industry and you are designing anything, you design test bench, and that's reflective of your traffic. If you are designing a transceiver for any kind of data transmission, you design your test bench reflecting the data. If it is for voice communication, reflects voice. If it is data, then it reflects data, and audio, it reflects audio. So yeah, and then you get the MATLAB output, and then you convert those MATLAB outputs into bits and look at the bits coming out of Verilog, and they must be bit matched. Yes.
So area and power is supposed to be for a specific.
Yes. So they read the handout that shows the specific technology in the CAD lab. How many of you are not taking CAD lab? I know a couple of you had raised hand. You are not taking the VLSI lab, but you have some Verilog experience.
Just a little.
4301, did you take? No, okay. How many of you have not taken 4301 or not taking CAD lab? Raise your hand. 5 of you, okay, 6 of you. Well, that's fine. So anyway, I mean, it's like any programming language that you need to put in some time and learn. Okay. Yeah, so the CAD, yeah, we'll talk a little more next time. But I think I need to change this problem. I think what I intended, and I think that the TA helping me type this not correctly, I think. So what I intended in this particular problem, number 5, I will go back, but I may change this. But I think this was intended to be a block diagram for a 2 interleaved filter. So I will correct that. I think this is, as it is printed now, is not what I intended. Okay. We'll take care of that. So, okay, so that kind of, I've completed 2 of the topics that I wanted to talk about. One is the filter structures, and the other is the interleaving, and there is a brief handout that I put on the Moodle site to read one of the papers, one particular section. So what I want to spend the remainder time today is talking about how pipelining or parallel processing can reduce power consumption. Okay, so historically, the advantage of pipelining was to reduce critical path and increase clock speed. But sometimes we may not be interested in increasing the clock speed. We are happy with the clock speed because that matches the sample speed. We are interested in reducing the power consumption by pipelining such that the reduction in critical path because of pipelining can be increased by reducing the supply voltage. Okay, so let's say that I have think about I have a data path that so think about we have a data path here, and that takes 3t. Okay, that takes 3t time units. Okay, so we have a well, actually I should let's make the t. So it doesn't probably matter all that much, but let's make it t and think of each stage data path delay as t by 3. So this is our original data path. Original data path has a critical path of t, critical path is t, and the total critical path is t because it has 3 stages without any delay, and the total critical path through this is the sum of all these. So the okay, so in CMOS, okay, so in CMOS, the charging current is given by this equation, some constant k, which is proportional to the mobility, the capacitance oxide, and so on. So and proportional to W over L. So we don't worry about some constant k times VDD minus Vt, the supply voltage minus the threshold voltage to the power alpha. When the book was written 20 years ago, alpha as mentioned in the book is alpha is 2, but alpha is probably more like 1.1 or something like that in today's technologies. When the book was written, these numbers that you will see look very strange, maybe 5 volts supply voltage, but the supply voltage today may be more like 1 and 1.2 volts. The threshold voltages have come down a lot. So, but anyway, so that's kind of what the charging current equation is, and in CMOS the change in charge is the capacitance, the charging capacitance times change in voltage, which is VDD minus 0. Logic 0 is 0 volt, logic 1 is VDD. So the propagation delay T is equal to the charging capacitance times VDD divided by, so bring t to this side, take this to the left side, constant k times VDD minus Vt to the power alpha. Okay, so so that's the propagation delay t through that path. So that whatever the charging capacitance was, so we are charging certain capacitance through that path. That's the charging capacitance. So now if you think about the so now let's say that we take that same data path. So we take the same data path that had 3 stages, but now we pipeline that data path. So if we pipeline that, so if you simply pipeline that, the clock period now should be t by 3 because we have pipelined this by t by should be t by 3, but instead what we intend to do is still maintain the same clock speed. We are not interested in increasing the clock speed. We want to maintain same clock speed. So even though in supply voltage VDD this could be charged or discharged in time t by 3, we want to reduce the supply voltage to beta VDD. So that's the new supply voltage, where beta is less than 1, and by reducing the supply voltage, well, essentially we are reducing the charging current. So so what I could have achieved a critical path of t by 3 with supply voltage VDD, and instead I want to reduce the supply voltage to beta VDD and maintain the same clock period t. So now if I write this new equation, t would be now so C charge prime, so the new charging more likely C charge by 3, because if I was charging in that long path with total charging capacitance C charge, more likely the charging capacitance on 1/3 of the path will be C charge by 3, or in general C charge by M if it is M stage pipelining, times the supply voltage beta VDD. So that VDD is changed to beta VDD times k times beta VDD minus the threshold voltage to the power alpha. And this equating, so setting this is equal to that, if you just set this equal to that, so the C charge cancels out, VDD cancels out. So given VDD, given alpha VDD Vt, solve for beta. So we can solve for beta if we know what the other parameters are. So this is just one equation, one unknown. So now we can find out how much the supply voltage should be reduced to maintain identical clock period t in the pipelined data path. Is that making sense? So a lot of times we are already bounded by the communication bound, and that means the clock speed ultimately is really bounded by the packaging delay. That's the delay that is necessary to take the signal outside the chip. There is a pad, and that's the real bottleneck. There are packaging engineers spending all their time to improve the packaging delay, and ultimately that kinds of limits how fast you can clock inside the chip, because ultimately the time to take the signal into the chip and bring it outside the chip to the board is going to be the limiting factor. Okay, so we can't really go beyond a certain clock speed. So then we can reduce power consumption and energy consumption. We'll talk a little about that, but that tells us how much the supply voltage can be reduced, okay, to maintain the same clock period. Okay. So what about power consumption? So the total power consumption is going to be the total capacitance consuming power times VDD squared times frequency f, where f, CV squared f, is the power consumption, where f is 1 over t, the clock speed. Now, P total in the pipeline system, this is the original P, is going to be still the total capacitance consuming power times beta VDD, that is the new supply voltage, whole square times the same frequency f. So, that means this is going to be roughly about beta squared times the original P tot. So, if beta is 0.6 and the original power then is reduced by reduced to 0.36, which is reduced by 64%. Okay, so that's so in other words, the concurrency in the form of pipelining or parallel processing is being traded off instead of increasing speed to reduce power consumption. So, the concurrency or independence of computations, and what all these terms are telling us is that they can be used for multiple purposes. They can be used to increase the clock speed, sample speed, or can also be used to reduce power consumption. Now, how does parallel processing reduce power consumption? Question. Any questions? Okay, how does parallel processing, so the pipelining we can reduce the, but before I get to that, maybe a little more, maybe I can clarify a little about what exactly we mean by charging capacitance and total capacitance. So, okay, let me come back to that multiplier, detailed circuit of the multiplier. So, this is a 4 by 4 bit multiplier, and that computes a 7 bit result, and you can see the products are marked P0 through P6. Now, when I say the total power consumption, that's roughly the total capacitance associated with all of these gates. So, that's 3 half adders, well, there are more half adders here, that's another 6 plus 3, 9 half adders, 6 full adders, and all of these AND and NAND gates. Okay, that's the total capacitance. When I use this word total capacitance, take the equivalent capacitance of all of these. That's the total capacitance. When I talk about the charging capacitance, which is what the critical path is, the charging capacitance is the capacitance through the critical path that's being charged or discharged. And so, in this particular case, if I start with, let's say, this NAND gate, so if I start with this NAND gate, that critical path would be, you can go from here to here to here to here. So, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, it looks like that's more than the other one. Let's take this path 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, that's bigger, and I guess it would be 7, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, that's the critical path. So, the charging capacitance is this critical path here. So, the capacitance through this path is the charging capacitance of the entire circuitry. So, you can think about, in general, the total power can be thought of in terms of the total number of devices. That can be thought of as equivalent to total number of devices in the circuit, total number of gates, if you can think about that, that's fine too. The charging capacitance and the total capacitance are not same. Total capacitance is the one consuming total power. Charging capacitance used in the propagation delay equation for T is that capacitance through the critical path. And if we pipeline this by placing horizontal cut sets at these locations, then that will reduce to say 2 stages or 2 full adders instead of all these 7 stages. So that's kind of good to know that the total capacitance and charging capacitance are not same things. Okay, so let me just make one more comment before we get on. I mean, the power itself is a complex quantity. There is dynamic power, leakage power, and all of those. But let me just quickly say one more thing before I get out of this equation here. So the total power, you can think of this as alpha times C total VDD squared F, where alpha is a switching probability or switching factor. So what does that mean? Well, it means that I might have a very large capacitance, let's say 1 farad, connected to VDD, connected between VDD. So this capacitance, if you think about this capacitance remains charged to VDD at all times. Okay, it's not consuming, it's a huge capacitance, but not consuming any power. It's not consuming. Why? Because the power is consumed, especially the dynamic power is consumed when the capacitance is charged or discharged. So that means if the capacitance is sitting always charged or discharged and nothing happens to it, it's not consuming any power. So that's good to know. So that's why we have this factor alpha. If the means switching, if in this case switching is 0, it does not switch, it does not change its state from 1 to 0. Okay, so so how does parallel processing reduce power consumption? So if I go back to the same example that we had initially, that we had a data path that we were clocking. So this circuit, we had this data path that was being clocked with period t. So we have a certain data path that is being clocked with period t. I have just put these 3 together to one block and call that the propagation delay of t. Now let's say we have a 3 parallel system. We have talked about parallel digital filters, if you want to think about that. So now if I have 3 parallel data paths, each computing one output. So if you think about 3 parallel filter, now recall that I don't want to increase, as we talked about before, we didn't want to increase the clock speed. Here I didn't want to, even though this was pipelined by 3 stages, this is the first pipeline stage, second and third, each could have been clocked at t by 3, but we were trying to reduce the supply voltage to reduce power consumption. So it was clocked with clock period t. Now so what I want to make sure here is maintain the effective sample period to be same. So instead of the clock period, so we are trying to maintain same sampling period. So the sample period here is t. Now if I clock this, in this particular case, if I clock this at 3 times t, and in time 3t we are computing 3 outputs, which would be 3t by 3, which would be t. So if we have a 10 parallel filter and I want to maintain same sample period t, then I can reduce the clock speed. I can increase the clock period to 10 times t or reduce the clock speed by factor of 10. So the goal here is reduce clock speed. And if you see here the clock speed f here is 1 by f original by 3. So the if the original time was, so the f original is 1 by t, and here the clock speed we are now increasing. So, to maintain same sample speed we are increasing the clock speed or reducing the clock frequency. And the reason we are interested in reducing the clock frequency, this f, so in the pipeline case the total pipeline, this f still stays the same, f is f in the original, f in the pipeline. In the parallel processing, this f is replaced by f over L, where L is the level of parallelism. Okay, so so if we have typically the book uses M as level of pipelining or interleaving, L as level of parallelism. So in a L parallel system, so in the original system we had the equation T so T was given by this equation. Okay. So now we have L times T, or if you want to think about 3T for L equal to 3 is equal to, now the charging capacitance has changed or has not changed? Has the charging capacitance in the parallel, so if this total charging capacitance was C, has the charging capacitance changed or not changed? Not changed. Unlike the pipelining it came down. So there is certain duality, but the duality is expressing itself in different ways. So unlike the pipelining, if you look at the pipeline equation, the charging capacitance reduced to a third of the original charging, the clock period stayed the same. Now the charging, so effectively if you think about, bring this 3 to the left hand side and the equation really stays the same, and that is not surprising because it is the same concurrency. So L times T, instead of C charge by L, so this is LT times beta VDD, that is the new supply voltage, times K times beta VDD minus VT squared or VT to the power alpha. And in fact the equation, the pipeline equation was exactly same, the only difference being this L was here, you bring it here. So the solution to the beta is exactly same. So if beta was 0.6 for 3-stage pipeline, beta is going to be still 0.6 for 3-stage parallelism. So you solve that for beta. Now the total power P tot is equal to, now the total power equation changes also. In the pipeline case, the total power was total capacitance. Now remember the total capacitance now is L times C tot. Why? Because we have replicated the data path. In a parallelism we replicate the data path L times, 3 parallel 3 times. So if the total capacitance of a single multiplier, for example, is C tot, and we have L parallel multipliers, then that is L times C tot. Beta VDD squared. However, that F now is F over L, because the clock period was increased to L times T. That means the clock speed was reduced by factor of L, and that is where the 2 L's come out, and that is how the total reduction in power in the pipeline case in strange ways and in the parallel case finally lead to same reduction, although the capacitance here is increased by factor of L. We take that and cancel that out by increasing the clock period by factor of L or reducing the clock speed by factor of L. Is that making sense? So, so we have really talked a few things so far. We have talked about concurrency, and the concurrency relies on independence of computations. That's what we say by two computations are concurrent. That means they can be processed in two different computers, two different processing units, or they can be processed in pipeline mode, or they can be interleaved in the same pipeline. And I talked about an example of how two time series that need to be filtered can be filtered by the same hardware by interleaving in the same hardware. And when we interleave multiple time series, we have to increase the number of delays, and essentially that would make sense, because if one of these filters requires 3 states, and if I need to interleave 4 different time series, well, I would intuitively need 3 times 4, 12 states. So it's not surprising. Okay, so let me just briefly talk about one other concept, and we'll stop today. Well, okay, let me okay, so these are two different block diagrams. There is a signal xn filtered by filter h of z. Now think about this. So yz, I am just trying to relate what I talked about interleaving transformation in the context of multi-rate signal processing theory. Okay. So yz is xz times hz. Okay. Now, if this is xn, this is called an expand operation, which means that insert m minus 1 zeros after every sample. So if this was x0, x1, x2, so this would be here x0, 0, 0, if m is 3, then 2 zeros, so this is m minus 1 zeros, x1, 2 zeros, etc. Anybody remembers the Z transform of an expanded sequence? Anybody took 45, 41 last semester DSP? No, okay, that's fine. That's fine. So, xz is x0 plus x1 z to power minus 1 plus x2 z to power minus 2 and so on. Now, if I take a signal x that has gone through expansion by factor 3, then we have x0, 0, 0, x1, 0, 0, x2, 0, 0 and so on. So, I can say x prime z is x0 plus 0 times z to power minus 1 plus 0 times z to power minus 2 plus x1 times z to power minus 3, 0 times z to power minus 4, 0 times z to power minus 5, x2 times z to power minus 6 and so on. So, this is in fact going to be same as xz cube. So, take the x z wherever there is a z replaced by z cube, and that's what that's called an expanded Z transform, which is xz cube if m is 3. So, in general this z transform would be x z to power m, okay, because of the 0 samples, and then this output y prime z will be equal to x z to power m h z to power m, which basically if you take the inverse z transform, what you get here. So, if you take the inverse z transform, that will correspond to y0, then m minus 1 zeros, y1 m minus 1 zeros. So, so think about this. So, what I have shown as an interleaving transformation is basically thought of through 2 steps. If you want to think about it in terms of DSP theory, think about an expanded sequence that has the 0 samples. When we have these 0 samples, that's really called null operations. We are computing nothing. So, and when I say h z to power m, replace each and every delay by m delays. That's what we did, and then replace. So, this would be perfectly fine if I had replaced this by 3 delays and then x0 0 0, x1 0 0. But the idea of interleaving, instead of having these null operations, replace them by x0 prime, x0 double prime, x1 prime, x1 double prime. You have 3 independent time series. Okay, so anyway, that's another way of theoretically explaining what the interleaving does by thinking of it as an expanded sequence and then increase each delay by m delays, and finally replace the null operations by real useful operations. Okay, we'll stop here. You should turn in your homework before we leave.
Bye.